So, you want to place smokes, do you? Well, there's a bit more to it than just placing them in a doorway and calling it a day. There's a few extra steps to it, so that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. To make it easy, I've divided the video up into sections to focus on if you ever want to return for a quick refresher. Here's a quick tip before we get started. You want to have an idea in mind when you place down a smoke. You have a limited amount of resources, so you don't want to be placing smokes on a whim without a purpose. There are a number of reasons to place a smoke, such as to lurk and make space, to deny a play onto sight, or simply to have the enemy team question their map control. We'll go over these in detail, so let's not waste any more time. Knowing where you should position your smokes is the #1 skill you'll need to know if you're picking up controller. Where you place your smoke can mean the difference between a round win and loss, so let's go over the basics of what makes a good smoke versus a bad smoke. A bad smoke looks like this. Notice how it isn't flush with this wall? What this means is that the enemy has multiple angles to peek from. This is our assistant Fade.
Salam.
Notice how in this clip, I'm able to clear angles one by one before Fade ever has the chance to see me. If we place this smoke just a little bit to the left here, we can see Fade before she ever has the chance to clear any angles. A rule of thumb for these is that the enemy shouldn't be able to strafe out of the smoke or get an angle on us at all. Here's another common example, this time on Lotus. Notice how if this smoke is placed here, I can clear every single one of these angles before I see Fade, letting me get an isolated 1v1. The smoke should instead be placed a little differently to make sure that it's out of my abilities to do so. One more thing of note is one-ways. One-ways are thrown to make sure that you see the other player before they can see you, or before they ever see you at all. Some examples of one-ways look like this. Just remember that the closer you are to a one-way, the more disadvantageous you are. This is because the further player from the smoke will always see the closer player first, so make sure you and your teammates aren't pushing into your own one-ways. Okay, so now you know the basics of how to place a smoke, but if you throw out a smoke like this while you're on defense, you're getting reported for gameplay sabotage. So let's take a look at what makes the difference between an attacker-sided and a defender-sided smoke. For starters, defender smokes will typically, well, defend stuff. You want to throw them on the sites to stall for time, bait out utility, or just to give yourself an advantage if a player tries to swing through it. Some more defensive-sided smokes look like this. These two are in different kinds of spots and work a little differently from each other. The smoke out in front of the site is a normal smoke to stall the attackers, but this smoke here in the back is designed specifically to retake the site after attackers get onto it. Smoking yourself or your teammates out of dangerous scenarios is what separates a good smokes player from a great one. Now you can't have a defense without an attack, so let's dive into what separates these two halves. On attack, similarly to how you smoke to keep space on defense, you want to use your smokes to take space and make the defenders have a more difficult time holding space. They have the sites, you need to get to them. You don't want to have your jet entry onto site only to get one tap from heaven, right? Well, you're gonna have to place smokes to not give defenders info and block out their sightlines. Your goal here is to make the defenders make uncomfortable decisions. Removing the space they have can cause them to swing an unfavorable angle or use an ability to bail themselves out of a bad spot. Attacker smokes usually let them lurk up or deny information to the defenders. This lets them work up map control without the defenders knowing. With that in mind, you can take more map control than you'd be able to otherwise. Timing is vital when it comes to being able to drop a smoke, as using them too early will give the enemy information. If our omen throws this smoke to A site, it tells the other team, hey, we're gearing up to attack A site. Though it may deny info from U-Haul, it tells the enemies that someone could be making space up site. If you throw a smoke like this too early, it could let the enemy team clue into your plans, all while your team can't capitalize on the smoke. Though this may seem bad, you can actually use this to your advantage. Depending on the situation, you could throw a smoke as a fake to bait enemies into rotating or otherwise playing into your hand. Smoking the site is an important thing to keep in mind in post-plant scenarios. Defenders and attackers alike can both use a smoke to make their post-plant game even stronger. A defender will throw up a smoke directly onto the spike to force the attackers to make a decision. They've got to spam it, use util, or go ahead and swing into it. On attack, you can throw a one-way on certain spots to make it way harder for the defending team to stick it. What you want to keep in mind as an attacker is if the enemy team's controller is still alive. If they're not dead or playing clove, you may find it harder to play an off-site post-plant. As long as you're paying attention in these scenarios, you shouldn't lose the upper hand in a post-plant. A flood smoke is a smoke used typically by an attacker that is used to get past a choke point or to push forward and make space. These are different from lurk smokes, as lurk smokes are used to block LOS to push into a different space, for example, whereas a flood smoke is obvious and usually used to flood out onto site, hence the name. Smokes like this are most commonly seen in site executions. I hope this short guide has given you a deeper understanding of the controller role and how to play smokes. Do you have anything I may have missed? Any constructive criticism is more than welcome. Also make sure to join my Discord, as I'm very active there and regularly post updates. Until next time.